I'm Brian, a blacksmithing instructor, and this is a project for my beginning blacksmithing class. Today we're making leaf charms or keychains, starting with 3/8 inch mild steel round bar. Now there are other ways to make a leaf, but this is a common and simple method. Draw a short square taper on the end of your bar, about 1/2 inch long. Push the bar past the far edge of the anvil and create a shoulder, using a half-face blow. Rotate the bar 90 degrees and set down another shoulder on an adjacent face. If your anvil has a very rounded edge like mine, you can use a sharper edge for the last few hits, just so your shoulders come out crisp. Here's a side view of that process. As you can see, we want the entire taper, plus a little bit of that parent material hanging over the far edge. Now notice the half-face blow. My hammer face is half on the anvil and half off. I hammer one shoulder several times without rotating the bar so it's well established before I rotate 90 degrees and start forming that second shoulder. Once I have both shoulders well established, I can start rotating the bar back and forth with each hit as I bring it down to the final size. Now the shape we created is a leaf pre-form, or what I call a bud. It should end up with 2 adjacent flat sides and 2 adjacent shouldered sides. Now we'll flatten that pre-form. I rotate the piece 45 degrees so it's on the diamond. This helps it flatten evenly and produces a wider leaf. Here I hammer a few times straight down with the flat face of my hammer. This widens the leaf slightly, which will give me a bigger target for the next step. Now I'll switch to my cross peen and move my non-dominant hand away from my body so that the cross peen is in line with the leaf. The cross peen acts like a wedge, spreading material only in one direction, unlike the hammer face, which spreads it in all directions. Once I've got some width, I'll switch back to the flat face of my hammer to take out the peen marks and lightly refine the profile. I'm trying to keep the middle of the leaf slightly thicker and have it thin out toward the edges. We're going to chisel decorative lines in this, and if the whole thing is thin, we can end up splitting it apart with the chisel. Now I'll use the chisel to mark a center line down the middle of the leaf. Keep this shallow to avoid splitting the leaf and chiseling into your anvil face. Notice I'm putting one corner of my chisel in the existing cut and then rocking down to extend the cut. This helps make a single continuous line rather than a bunch of overlapping cuts. Now I go down each side of the leaf with a few parallel lines to mimic veins. A dead flat leaf doesn't look very natural, so let's give it some curve. I like to bend the tip slightly to one side. Once you've got this started, you can then trap the leaf against the anvil side like this to continue rolling that tip over. Now I'll use the hardy hole in the corner of my hammer to cup the leaf slightly. Alternatively, you can hammer into a wooden stump or use a ball peen hammer, which both give nicer results. That's it for the leaf, so now we need to draw out that stem. Let's cut it off the bar, leaving about 1/2 inch of material behind. It might not seem like enough, but it will grow significantly as we draw it out. We heat the cut end, find a pair of tongs that can hold onto that leaf without crushing it, and then start drawing out the leaf stem. We want to take it down pretty small, to about 1/8 of an inch, which is the thickness of a charging cable. This can be hard at first, since it doesn't stay hot very long. The trick is to get a good grip on it and get to the anvil quickly, which is easier with a little practice. Once we get this to size, knock down the corners to make it an octagon, then round it up under light hammer blows. I also like to taper the end of the stem slightly so it forms a little tail. When it's thin like this, avoid hammering at a black heat or you can split the material apart. Now for this first keychain, I'll bend the stem in half and make sure that that tail lays across the face of the leaf, the side with the lines in it. As long as the tail lays close to the leaf, it will create a little loop so that the leaf can be used as a keychain or a pendant. I also like to give the very end of the tail a slight curve so it's not dead straight. Like most of our projects, you can just brush and wax this to finish. Here's another way to finish a keychain. This is another leaf I made the same way. The stem is bent in half, and the tail is laid across the leaf face. Once I've got it hot, I position my tongs so I'm holding the tail against the leaf face so that it doesn't move. Then I'll use a pair of pliers or tongs to twist the stem about half a turn. As before, curve the tail the opposite direction to give everything a more organic look. Now let's create a longer stem using a new technique. We start the same way by creating the leaf preform, or bud. But now, instead of flattening the bud, we're going to create two more shoulders on the near edge of the anvil. Try to place these two shoulders on the opposite sides of the first two shoulders, though it's not critical. This can be pretty awkward at first, but stick with it. We're isolating a few inches of material between our two sets of shoulders. This will become about 4 times longer when you're finished, so don't leave too much material here. Here I'm using the cross peen to aggressively draw out that material into a long, thin stem. Now here's why we didn't actually open the leaf up and left it as a bud. If you open the leaf first, it can oxidize or get damaged while you're drawing out all of this material. Leaving it as a bud protects it, and we can open up the leaf once all the heavy work is finished. Having your sets of shoulders on opposite sides allows you to work the stem flat against the anvil on the near and the far edges of the anvil. Once the stem is drawn down, round it up just like we did before. Before we cut this off, let's open and shape the leaf like before. Flatten a bit with the hammer face, widen it with the cross peen, clean it up, and cut some lines in with your chisel. Now, because the stem is so thin, it can be tricky to start bending the tip. Try to just heat the tip of the leaf and get it started. Then you can trap it against the side of the anvil to continue bending it over. I'm using a ball peen hammer over the hardy hole here, but as before, a wooden stump is a better option if you have one. Now we'll cut the piece from the bar, leaving 2 or 3 inches of the stem. We'll gain even more length as we taper the cut end. It's very thin, so you only need to nick it here. Just use light taps and then break it off. We draw the tail as we did before, with the usual square to round method. Now, as before, we bend the stem about halfway. We lay the tail against the leaf face. Now, once it's hot, we clamp the tail against the leaf face and we twist it with pliers or tongs. I like to use these scrolling tongs because I can actually put the tong bit into the loop, which prevents it from closing while we twist it. Give it a few turns and get more heat if it starts to fight you. As always, add a little curve to the tail. Brush, wax, and you're finished. A leaf is a good shape to put on the end of any bar. It works well with hooks and charms, keychains, anything you can think of. Thanks for watching.